Hey, this is Dr. Emily Sherning with American Resiliency. If you or someone you care about is skeptical regarding climate action, maybe you feel it's basically political, show you how seriously they take climate at the Department of Defense. I'm proud of my family's military service. And if you also take pride in our country's armed forces, I think you're going to be interested in the ways the DoD is looking out for all Americans on climate. Going back to 2010, climate has been considered a major intelligence and action priority for our military forces. During my work with NASA during my graduate training, I developed great respect for the skill, expertise, and professionalism of DoD science personnel. I was not surprised to learn that the DoD maintains a cutting edge understanding of climate science. So, in this at a glance visual here, which I love, we can see the DoD's entire strategy on climate action and its various lines of effort that come together to get security for our nation. The first of these, line of effort one, is climate informed decision making. They are preparing for the possibility of RCP 4.5 and RCP 8.5 scenarios. Those are scenarios where we bring emissions down and scenarios where we don't. It's worth noting the DoD is not preparing for a no change scenario. They're keeping their eyes and ears open to get a sense of how big the changes will be, but they 100% accept that changes are coming. And then in this letter from the Secretary of Defense, we see why. The DoD isn't doing this stuff just to check boxes and meet a requirement. They're trying to take essential steps to defend the nation under all conditions. The DoD sees climate as a primary threat to American national security, and they want to be there to protect you. The DoD is also not just talking about climate, they're acting. Their current climate ready training standards are preparing troops and testing equipment at temperature ranges from negative 60 to 120 degrees. For defense in the heat, there's development and testing of tactical cooling and on site water generation equipment. The military's ability to pull water from the air is getting really impressive. It's a big deal for anyone interested in home water resilience. It's going to be like Velcro, a huge trickle down technology opportunity for civilians. But take a step back. If we're worried about global warming, you might be thinking it's a little weird that they have this emphasis on like extreme cold testing. Why are they doing all this testing at negative 60? It's because of a strategic focus on the Arctic. Changing climate conditions make it likely the Arctic seas will open up, changing the balance of power up at the top of the world. If you're interested in that area of strategic interest, you should check out my 2023 video about Alaska. I show some international maps you will enjoy. As the military considers other international areas of interest, you might want to know that in the 2022 report, they're focusing war game funding on Central Asia and Southern Asia. If you check out my global visual report, you'll get some insight into why these are the areas where we expect the roughest, most imminent, destabilizing climate impacts. The DoD is also very interested in power generation, with black start exercises, assuming a total disconnect from the grid, having been performed at bases coast to coast. And when we start talking about power generation, it brings us right over to the DoD's fourth line of effort on climate, supply chain issues. The DoD identifies supply chain issues as a primary area of interest in their 2021 report. By the 2022 update, they're sharing four critical areas where they're using all of their leverage to bring the supply chain into the US. They're trying to onshore this. So here you can see right in the 2022 update the four areas where the military is working to onshore production so that we can avoid serious supply chain issues in our kinetic capabilities, energy storage and battery production, high-tech casting and forging, and production of microelectronics. When you see that connection in the DoD's lines of effort, and you know there's an explicit connection between their supply chain line of effort and the Defense Production Act, it helps you get a little different perspective on the news. We went from looking at a call for production at home of microelectronics in the DoD report to seeing a couple of days ago Biden invoking the Defense Production Act for printed circuit board production. So we can see it in the news. Everyone is doing exactly what they said they wanted to do in the 2022 update based on the 2021 report, where the DoD ties the invocation of the Defense Production Act to the supply chain LOE. The DoD wants to bring power generation and high tech manufacturing home. That doesn't sound like just a security issue to me either. It sounds like a jobs issue. The sort of casting and forging work my grandfather did, highly skilled industrial work, has been largely outsourced in the global economy. Bringing it home is an important way to ensure American security, stability, and prosperity. And some of us, when we hear industry, we feel concerned about the environment. I think it's really important to note that across these DoD documents, there's an emphasis on ecosystems, ecosystem care, ecosystem services, ecosystem transitions. The military shows a deep acknowledgement of the fact that we need a healthy environment as a context for healthy agriculture, healthy communities, for a healthy country. DoD work going back 30 years has focused on landscape management and landscape care for the practical reason of maintaining area around military bases. This work has taught us a lot of lessons, though, as we get ready to manage wildfire in the American Southeast, a major area of emerging climate threat. Many of the most successful techniques were developed at Fort Benning in Georgia. The DoD is interested in healthy landscapes and in supporting changing landscapes. The science says that many American forests are likely to become grasslands in the next 30 years. Supporting those transitions in a way that reduces wildfire, maintains ecosystem services like pollinators and the natural cleaning of the air and water, and supports agriculture is a DoD focus. The Sentinel Landscape Program is a way that communities across the US are building resilience with DoD partners. If you look into this webpage, there's a lot going on in this plan to preserve biodiversity. And when you look at coastal resilience, the DoD Living Shorelines programs are also totally focused on green technologies. They're creating living barriers using native shoreline plants and animals like oysters to clean water, absorb storm surge, protect communities, and provide habitat for coastal creatures. When we look at the investment, the training, and the people involved, the strategic, quality, highly integrated approach the DoD takes to climate, it should be a major source of hope. And if you are someone you know is skeptical about climate issues, you may be tired about hearing about climate from people who are gluing themselves to roads or throwing stupid paintings. If you want to know if a threat is serious or not, I feel like you can trust the Department of Defense. As we get ready to sum things up, this is a public facing site from the DoD that I would recommend for anyone with kids in their lives. Kids can get really scared of this climate stuff, and it's good to know that if you end up in harm's way, there are people who are out there to protect you. I mean, look, even if you get hit by a volcano, they're going to come and help you. I can tell you, as a person who went through Hurricane Katrina, that website, it's not just about like nice production values. There's real content there. I was helped by the National Guard when I was evacuating from Slidell, Louisiana. Let me tell you, in Slidell, we found out we were in the path late and we got hit hard. I was in a multi-mile jam within the path of the hurricane. We'd been stuck for a long time. We all knew Katrina was coming. If the traffic didn't move, we were going to get hit right there on the highway, and it was going to be very serious. There were people who died that way that day. In the jam, people were helping each other. You know, you hear so many horror stories in Katrina, but mostly I saw people helping each other. But even so, there were people who were running out of water in this totally stalled jam for hours in the Louisiana heat. There were a lot of older people who were poorly, who really needed help. You could see they were starting to be suffering. When the National Guard rolled in, they gave essential supplies to folks who needed them. They got the vehicles causing the jam off the highway way upstream. They gave medical treatment to people who needed it. I think about that day and how it felt when we saw the Guard come in, whenever I think about the military and climate issues. I'm glad they were there for me, and the DoD makes it as clear as day. They want to be there for you when you need them. They want to be there for us as our fellow Americans. And none of us are alone. We got to work together when we work on climate. A lot of the philosophy and approach to climate in these DoD documents, they're the kind of common sense every American should be able to get behind. We need to consider our national security. That includes disaster response, disaster resilience, and supply chain issues. Toughening up, making what we need in America, getting ready for what's coming. These are priorities where we should all be able to agree because there is hope. If we look at the best intelligence for climate change impacts around the globe, North America is a bright spot in the future that's coming. If we want to realize the hope of America, we need to prepare for what's coming. Let's get ready.